All right, good morning. Thank you, everyone. I'm Gina Sudam. I'm the president of the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce. We're thrilled to have you again this morning for our Restart, Rebound, Rebuild series. And this morning, we're going to talk about rebounding your brand. So as we all know, we've had this great pause in our businesses and our business plan. And maybe you haven't been communicating with your customers as much as you normally would because they haven't been coming in and out of your store. You haven't been able to operate. Maybe you're in real estate and that's been a really tough market. The hair salons, places that have been, completely shut down, and really, how do you stay in communication with your clients? So one of the things you need to start thinking about is how do you get some of that brand recognition back? And I have with us this morning Steve Tallarico and Sandra Gonzalez from ID8 Marketing. They are going to talk to us a little bit this morning about branding. But I think first, Steve has some questions for all of you to consider. And I would like to put them in the, I would like to have you put those in the chat box. So down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat feature, and you could answer his questions and leave them kind of open to everyone. Allison, I'm going to ask you, it looks like Lexi's having a problem hearing me. Can you message Lexi? And
I'm good now. I actually had it on silent, sorry.
Oh, great. Thanks, Lexi. I appreciate it. Okay. So,
question?
Sure.
I'm only seeing 6 people.
Yep, because you see the presentation. You'll see all of them in a second. Once I switch the slide off, then you'll see everybody. All right, so we're going to get started this morning. Let me stop sharing my screen now that you know who Steve and Sandra are, so that we can see each other. Because again, we've been hiding in our houses for a long time now. Some people have their cameras off, which is fine. If you'd like to switch them on, again, down at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you have the option, and it looks like a little video camera. You can go ahead and switch your cameras on. So Steve can see you because he wants to see some smiling faces this morning, right, Steve?
Good morning, everyone.
All right. So again, good morning, and we're going to get started. I called Steve, full disclosure, I called Steve yesterday because I was in a bit of a crisis about today's session. And so Steve and I are going to have a conversation this morning about branding, and we want your input because obviously you have an interest in this. And first, I think, Steve, one thing you asked me yesterday that I'm going to turn around and ask you is, what is the difference between branding and marketing, or what are you looking for? What are you considering branding, right? That was what you turned the tables back to me yesterday when I first called you. So I want to start with that question and have you kind of tell the audience what your difference is in those two things a little bit, right? You explained them very well to me yesterday, and I think it would help to get us all on the same page.
I'll do my best. Problem with me is once I explain it once, I can't remember what I said the next time, so I'll do my best. The difference, branding is really, people think that your brand is your logo or your signage, or it's your visual identity, and it's way more than that. Your brand is really everything, in our opinion. It's your relationship with the world. It's how well the world is engaged with you. And when you have a good, authentic brand, that's when your identity, who you are at your core, who you are, your philosophy, what you stand for, as we discussed yesterday, as Simon Sinek has said, your why. Once you know what your why is, why you exist and your purpose, if that is in conjunction with people's perception of you, then you have a good, healthy brand. And so the difference between branding and marketing is your brand is really your relationship with the world. It's how they perceive you. And it's in the best case scenario is when you have fans rather than clients or customers, people that will defend you and stand by you. Like you take the company Apple. If Apple built a house or a car, the Apple fans would probably buy that car and buy that house, even though they were known for making computers. Marketing is simply the tactics and the strategies around that. Marketing are the tools you use to continue the branding process. And the branding process is a verb. It's burning the thought of you into the minds of them. So everything falls under the umbrella of branding, your marketing, your social media, your website. So everything that a person could experience in dealing with your brand, your employees, how they answer the phone, the travel time if they're coming to, if you have a resort or a restaurant or whatever, getting there, the parking lot, how they're received, what it smells like, what it looks like, how people are dressed, all of that. You know, if the bricks are pointed the proper way, if the grass is cut the proper way, if there's weeds growing in the parking lot, all of those things are part of your brand. And marketing are the tools you use to communicate that brand. Sandra, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
The only thing that I would add to that is that probably the most important thing in your brand is how well you deliver on your brand promise, because that's really a measure of how authentic you are.
I would agree, and that's we broke this down into a series of steps, and a quick background on us. I started in 1990, 91 was official, so we're in our 30th year of business. Sandra and I have been working together since that time. I think since 1989 is when we met. And at that time in the 90s, I was in my early 20s, and most of the work we were doing was on identity. We were doing mostly design work. We started working with some banks and resorts and some retail shopping centers and things like that. Most of it was creative work. So it was design, advertising. We were doing marketing research. And in the mid 90s, we really got into more data and strategy, where we were developing marketing strategies and marketing plans. Sandra wasn't really working with me on that level then. We were doing mostly video work. She owned her own video company, and she worked for a major ad agency down in Washington, D.C.
Crisis management.
Doing crisis management for major Fortune 500 companies. In the 2000s, we got deeper into building brands. It was more into philosophy and vision and what you stood for and who you were as a company, and not writing a slogan or a catchy headline, but more so helping you develop your elevator pitch as to who you are and what makes you authentic. And I started to look at that and realize guys like Steve Jobs and other people built their businesses in their garage. They didn't need a brand promise. They didn't have anybody else to make the promise. It was already in their heart. They already knew what they were authentically, and they knew what they were going to offer. And their mission was clear to them. So in the 2000s, I was working with a bunch of resorts, restaurants, we still do, and shopping center developers, and a lot of retail. And I realized that some of the resorts had leads coming in, but they had no systems of management. So we were giving them the research, we were telling them what people wanted, we were telling them what they needed to do and how to reposition themselves. But as leads were coming in, they weren't managing them. And so we were more so involved in systems then, and funnel and prospect development and things like that, where lead management and those things. So it was more in the system side. Then I realized that some of those clients were not succeeding, and the reason was because the people weren't engaged. They didn't understand the brand. And I realized, even though I knew it all along, and this is, I guess, how you peel an onion. This is where 30 years of experience makes a difference versus 5 or 10 or 20. In the last 10 or 15 years, especially in the last 10, I've realized that it's all about engagement. It's really, if you don't believe it on the inside, how can anybody else believe it on the outside? So it was about being authentic. And I also realized I had to ask the questions to ownerships, to business owners. The number one question I ask when I'm going to work with someone is, do you have the heart to do this? Are you ready? Are you really truly ready to go through what you've got to go through? Because sometimes people were third generation and they, so to speak, inherited what they had. And you ask them the question, why do you do what you do? And the answer was many times, well, this is the way we've always done it. Well, I think that's kind of where we're at now. Well, is the way you've always been doing it? The question here is, I forget the title of the presentation today, is Rebounding Your Brand. right now people, and we talked about this earlier, Gina, people are thinking about survival and what can I do, and do I need to put up plexiglass, and how do I get past some of these regulations in order to survive? And really the question is, what was your brand before, and how well did you relate to your customers, and how well do they love you? And if they didn't before, then you better work twice as hard now to get them to understand who you are. But we're human beings. We relate to each other as humans. And when we're transparent, and when we're authentic, and when we're vulnerable, that's when people really go there. Like there's a restaurant that I went to yesterday for takeout. I had my son out for a hike in the woods, and I've been going there my whole life. I was a dishwasher there when I was 12, and the grandmother taught me how to wash dishes. And I still am very proud as to how well I can scrub a pan today from that experience. But they live in my heart. And I wouldn't dream of going somewhere else, even though the food may be different or better somewhere. So it's a relationship, right? So what I would like to talk about today is, how do we build the most authentic relationships with people? And it's not really, I had told Gina earlier today, I watched a video from the other day with a woman from the Restaurant Association, and it was a very, very well done presentation. She talked for 30 minutes, and she had all the answers. There's no real answer. I can't just sit here and say, here's a 10-step process and everyone's going to be successful. We all know that that would be a lie, because you have to have the heart to go through what you have to go through. And it's kind of like when a disruption happens in a family and someone gets ill or something happens, we all have to adjust to that and adapt to that. And you go into triage, and you might not have ever wanted to go through those steps, but now that you're in it, you just have to do it. And I think that's where we are right now as a country, as a state, as a world. We are all in a situation that no one ever asked for, no one wanted. Whether we agree with all of it or we don't agree with all of it, there's a certain level of reality to it. There's a certain percentage of the population that will be in fear to engage. There's a certain level of the population that will that cannot wait to get back out there and engage, me being one of them. So we've developed an 8-step process, and I'll just lay it out there. And then what I would like to do is get people to start talking and ask some questions. Sure. But the 8-step process is really, it started as a 4-step process 10, 15 years ago. Situation analysis, strategic planning, tactical implementation, and then evaluation again, right? It goes back to the beginning. We took that and said, it's not really just that. Yes, situation analysis, absolutely. But the 8-step process that we built is, first step is brand evaluation. So that is looking at your brand, looking at your relationship with all of the groups that you have a relationship with. Who are those groups? They are your ownership, your management, your staff, your employees, right? All of those people. Do they understand the services and products you offer? Do they understand your vision and your philosophy and your mission and your core values? Do you share them? Do you ever talk about them? This is the time where that's really going to matter. When things are good, those things don't matter that much. But when things aren't good, one bad employee or one bad situation can really hurt your relationship with your customers, especially when people are emotional like they are right now. So evaluating those groups, but then also all of your market segments, your current users, and every market segment that you have. And what do I mean by market segment? That could be geography. If you have different locations, it's certainly your psychographics of your people. And when people, I want to say one thing, when people think that they're a business to business or B2B business, we do 90% of our work with B2B, let's say 80% of our work, 85 maybe, but there is no such thing as business to business. It's human to human, and people only work with who they like. So that's one thing. You then have to have your vision. What do you want to be? What were you before? What do you want to become, and why? And then you have to make a promise around that. You're going to be the best at something. You're going to do the best at something, like FedEx, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. Now, that guy was ridiculed in college. Was it Fred Smith? Is that the guy's name, the CEO? No one thought that there was ever a need for that. Why would anybody need anything overnight? Well, we all need to figure out what that promise is. You need to build a strategy around that. You need to build engagement around that. Then you need to tell your story. So most people jump into, I want to put a billboard up, or let me tell people that we're doing curbside pickup, or those types of things. Yes, they all need to be there. Those are tactics, but you need to really make a promise as to what am I going to get that's different at your establishment than someone else's. So you tell your story, then you build a presence. That's where your social media comes in. So many people come to us to do their social media management, and if there's no true story and there's no authenticity to it, they don't really know what to say, and they're just putting the same things out, and it's arbitrary, random information. Quite frankly, no one is interested in. So you need to build a strategy around that. And then what is the brand experience? So those are the steps that if I were advising anyone, I would advise, and I can certainly make things accessible to everyone beyond this call. I'll make myself accessible. Anybody wants to call me or email or questions or anything like that, we certainly can answer those. But what I would like to do is I'd like to learn. I know there's a very diverse group of people. There's banks, there's oil companies, appliance companies, economic development, insurance. I think there's a boxing group on the phone, construction, tech, the airport. I'd like to hear what people's concerns are, and I would like to do my best and Sandra's best. Sandra's an amazing asset to have, and she is full of deep, deep wisdom when it comes to this stuff. We will both do our best to point you guys in the right direction and be accessible to you. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you for considering us to be here, and I promise we'll do our best to answer anything you would like answered.
So you can unmute yourself if you'd like and ask Steve some questions, or you could type them into the chat. And as we're thinking about that, because I know that's a little bit of a different situation. Usually I ask all the questions, right? So you may not have been prepared with your own questions this morning, but I know you have them. I'm going to ask Steve some of the questions that I have ready to go, because I think these are some things that are on all of your minds, right? We have been kind of in this great, limbo of, as I mentioned earlier on the call, this prolonged limbo of our business situation, right? How can we, our businesses are closed, we're working from home in some situations. But how do we rebound and, as you said, Steve, get that engagement back in a faster way, right? Because it's not going to be that we suddenly open our doors and everyone just comes streaming back in. We would love if that were the case, but it's not going to be the case. So do you have some tips around how do we start maybe slowly building that engagement in anticipation of our business reopening, right? Because we all have our great fans out there. We all have our customer base, but where do we start now after we've been paused for so long? Well,
the answer to that's kind of a trick question, and nothing against the question, but the reason I say that is if I had everybody on the phone that was in one industry, I could talk about innovative things for that industry.
Right.
The issue is that I don't really know each one of these industries that I'm looking at that I have written down on my notes here. They all have something different. Like if it's an appliance sales, let's look at that for a minute. And why did I pick that? It's just random. But I saw my neighbor yesterday try to get appliances from Lowe's and Home Depot. Now, let me take an aside, make a point here. Why is it okay for Lowe's and Home Depot to be open and smaller private individual companies cannot be open? That's a whole other conversation that we could have outside of this call. However, he went to order it, but they wouldn't deliver it, and they wanted to drop it off at his driveway. At the base of his driveway, there's a big hill that goes up to his house, and he's an older man and an older woman. So Lowe's and Home Depot wouldn't provide the service. So a way of being innovative, the small appliance company that did deliver it actually went and installed it as well. So what did they have to do? They had to communicate that they were safe, that they were clean. They wore the booties on their shoes. They had a certain uniform that was pressed. There was certainly no dirt or grease on it. The person had to be manicured. They delivered it. They didn't drop it at the base of the driveway. They backed up and they got the sale. Now, how did they communicate that? They did some direct mail. They did some email blasts. They did some social media on Facebook ads, and they let people know what they were doing. And they talked about those issues, and they attracted older people that were afraid to go out and that weren't able to deliver the thing and put it on a what do you call it themselves, the cart, and bring it into their house. So they did great. Banks, we have a number of banks that are our clients. Right now, they're doing really well with some of these PPP loans and things like that. They're doing very well with that. And their apps and their technology are taking off because people don't want to go to the banks. Their employees aren't at the banks, the tellers aren't at the bank, so it's mostly drive-through, but people don't want to wait in those lines. So their technical stuff is taking off, those automatic deposits. What I'd like to hear, and if people aren't going to ask questions, I'm going to randomly go through here and I'm going to call on you. I'm going to ask you to tell me what's going on. So I'm going to start that right now. How about Mr. Giorgetti?
And that was random.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
If you can tell us a little bit about your background and if there's anything that I can help you with. And the next one's going to be Kathy Reap. I'll give her a heads up.
Sure. I'm affiliated with both Deer Park Lumber and Shadowbrook Resort, and I'm very interested in this particular subject. We are in the process right now with Shadowbrook, and in particular our restaurant, going through a rebranding. We took advantage of this opportunity with everything that's going on with COVID-19 and being shut down I refer to it as organizational therapy. We were able to kind of look at ourselves, identify some of the areas that we really needed to improve on. That conversation then evolved into, well, maybe this becomes our ideal opportunity to completely rebrand the restaurant, which we're in the process of doing right now. Unfortunately, I don't want to go into a lot of details until everything gets properly communicated as part of our marketing strategy with the rebranding. But we're really excited about the direction that we're going with what was previously known as Bogies. We're going to be going through a rebranding, renaming. So we really felt as an organization, along with the leadership team and even engaging the employees, of a self-evaluation and honest evaluation. What were the areas that we, just didn't do well? You had mentioned about, in particular with the branding and, understanding what branding really is and is how the customers and perceive you.
No, they can't hear me.
We recognized that there was some really good opportunities for us to kind of improve on how we're viewed by the community and by our customer base. So we're excited. We think we're headed in the right direction. We think and firmly believe that the rebranding and who we're going to become is part of our revised vision. Because it is interesting you brought that up, because that was one of the first things we looked at. Who do we want to be? And that kind of was what we put on our whiteboard, saying, okay, this is who we want to be. So how do we internally, from a process standpoint, customer service standpoint, training standpoint with the employees, how do we achieve that? And not to say we're going to be perfect, but we're going to be a lot better than what we were. So we took some lemons, and we did make lemonade with everything that's going on, I feel. So we're excited about this.
That's great. I mean, we took this couple of months, and we really worked on our plan. And I worked on a plan, a general global plan for how I was going to approach our clients. And I think there was no better time than now, being forced into the situation to have to reevaluate and recalibrate who we are and what we stand for and where we want to go and what our vision is. And that's really great that that you did that. And it's a great time to look at, profile who your best clients and customers were psychographically. There are services out there that we do and other people do, but you can look into Woodloch Resort, and Shadowbrook was a client of mine back in 1999, 2000. We did some work up there, and Woodloch has been a client of ours for about 30 years. And they toggle between number 1 and 2 in the country for family resorts against Disney with resorts and lodges, and they are between number 1 and 3 in the country for the spa. So they're a very classy organization. We're proud to have worked with them for many years, and about 6 or 7 years ago, we worked with the family and went through a whole visioning process, and they realized that in between January and March, in midweeks, they had a lot of senior bus trips that were going there, and that died off. All of a sudden, 10 years later, those people were no longer coming back. And I would always tell the family that, we need to really do some studies. And John Kiesendahl he has said it even in testimonials on video for us, they didn't really do that in the beginning. And then we went through and looked at that, and we helped them realize that what they bring, this was Sandra's, her brainchild. In one meeting with the entire family, we had gone through 3 or 4 or 5 visioning sessions and ideation sessions. And one day, sitting in the family meeting in the big conference room, Sandra said, "You guys bring joy, whether it's business to business, golf, whatever. Your product is joy." Just like I always ask the question, if anybody's ever read the book Positioning by Jack Trout, what is Revlon's product? Revlon's product is not makeup, it's hope. And everybody has to look at what their product is and what do they bring. It's a psychological product. It's not a physiological product. And we then went and profiled all of their best clients. And let's say they had 25 data fields in the database for those clients. We took 1,000 random sampling, and we went back to them with 255 data fields, where they were now able to isolate pockets of people in Baltimore, Maryland, and New York and New Jersey, and they were able to target market to them on social media and direct mail and email blasts, and grow exponentially. That they've had every year, every month has been better than the previous month. And that's definitely due to that. So doing what Mr. Giorgetti did, I agree, and potentially looking at who your clients are and doing a good profile of them would be something that I would strongly suggest looking into. Thank you very much for jumping in on that. Kathy Reep, I said I was going to come to you. Any thoughts, and what's your background and what do you do?
Hi. Our business is called Rocksteady Boxing. So we're the boxing business you were mentioning. But it's not a conventional boxing business where all of our clients are people that have Parkinson's disease. We are very specialized, and through our boxing program, they fight back against Parkinson's. It's the intensity, the exercise, the camaraderie, the information, the support. It's multifaceted. So we have 2 locations. One is in Old Forge, which of course is Lackawanna County, and the other one is in Tunkhannock, which is why I'm on the call. And we do know that our Tunkhannock facility will open first. But as a gym, we're going to need to wait till the green phase. One of our biggest challenges, I believe, well, first of all, communicating with our people. We have our age ranges go from age 45 to age 85. So we have people that are technologically with us. We have people that are not. We have to make a lot of phone calls. Altogether, we have about 78 clients between the 2 facilities. I think what you had said that struck me the most was really that transparency and authenticity, and coming back, we have to have a total buy-in, not only from myself, but getting my coaches, my volunteers and stuff, that we have to have a very clean and safe environment, because we have a vulnerable population, to ask them to come back. So that's going to be our challenge. We may have to, we already know we'll be limiting class sizes. So that's going to make it even more challenging. because will we need to add more classes? And when we talk about branding, when I came on the call, I'm thinking branding is seeking out new customers, but I'm really at this point looking to bring back the ones I had. And will I even have room to add new people, because I'm going to be so limited in class sizes? So I'm just listening, gathering information, a lot of the details about what our state requirements are going to be as a gym in terms of space and numbers and all that. We're waiting for, we don't have the specifics yet from the state. So all our planning is very, very tentative at this moment. But we've been doing Zoom classes. We have a social hour. We get people on Zoom socially. And between myself and George Stoney are on the call, he's my head coach for Tunkhannock. We reach out and call people, send emails. That's about it. Thanks for your time.
Well, I want to tell you that's a beautiful mission, and that touches my heart very deeply. And I will extend something to you, and I will extend this to the rest of the people on the call. Anybody that wants to have a conversation outside of this, you know, I'll have a call with you guys for free, no strings attached. I'm here. I've been coming into my office every day. No one else is here but me. A lot of our projects, like we were the ones on the front line, we really got hit hard. We had many projects signed up to start with amazing video projects and things like that. Like we have a contract with Woodlock to do a series of number of days a quarter, and we can't shoot, we can't do anything. So I'm here and I'm strategizing, and I'm biding my time, and I have time available. So I'm offering that for free for anybody that Gina wants to, you know, get in touch with me. I certainly will do a Zoom call or a phone call and entertain anything you want to talk about. And there's no strings attached. I'm here to help, and I'm sure that things will come back at some point, but we all have to be pretty smart about that. So I'm just looking at people's names here. Some people don't.
We do have a question that came up, two questions that came up in the chat. So one is from my friend and fellow chamber partner, Elise. Elise, I believe you're all the way up in Canada, right?
Hi, Elise.
Is that where you're at?
Oh, she's on mute.
Yep. I don't know if I can, there we go, I can unmute you. So Elise is up in Canada, which is pretty exciting that she joined our little chamber call here in Wyoming County. And Elise wanted to know if you have that 8-step process kind of written down somewhere, Stephen. I know you said yesterday to me that you're building it out.
We have a guide. This is one thing, and everybody here knows, like that old story of the shoe repair person has holes in their shoes. We have a guide that we've been building for 30 years. And I've produced numerous versions of it, but we're just about, let's say, 85, 90% done with it. But I do have these steps, and I have other graphics that I could put together quickly in a PDF. And anybody that wants it, just email me, or Gina, get me a list, and I'll email that out. So you have those steps. And we have them all, but we're just sort of kind of tweaking it and trying to make it all make sense and fit together, because we have so many different things. But yes, I will send those out.
Sure, and we can post them if you'd like. We could post them when we post the copy of this call. The other question that came in is, so right now everybody, or a lot of people, have shifted to online sales. And there's some local companies on here. Specifically, one is a pharmacy. A lot of people are getting their pharmaceuticals delivered online right now. But it's a local pharmacy, and he's been in business in Wyoming County for a very long time. And he is wondering how to best reattract those customers who might have changed their behavior. And I think this can kind of go for all industries across the board, right? There's a lot of people who have had to change their behavior during this. So how can we reattract some of those that maybe have started online sales and home deliveries, things like that?
So let's look at the companies that have grown the most. Amazon, Microsoft. They've had a $230 to $250 billion growth spurt during this period of time, at least according to some some information that I have found in my research. I don't know that to be 100% true or not, but clearly Zoom is doing great, right, everyone? Zoom is doing great. That company is making a ton of money. And anything around digital communication is making money, and anything you can do to make things easier for people. I know that I've used Amazon more lately than, and I used it a ton, but I used it a lot more lately. I'm buying anything and everything that I can on that. I refuse to stand and wait in line to get into a store with a mask on my face and go in, and I just don't want to go through that process. So my first question to, what is this person's name that I'm speaking to, Jim?
This is Joe Leck, and he's with Lex Pharmacy.
Lex Pharmacy. I don't see Joe. Oh, I see his name, but I don't see him. Joe, come on.
He doesn't have his camera on, but he can hear us.
Joe, we're talking about transparency here. Let's see you. Show yourself to it. So, I'll speak to your. You look like Helvetica to me right now. So Helvetica typeface. I'll speak to that. So Joe, what I'd like to know is that question regarding, at one point you had a number of people that would come into the pharmacy, and now you want to know how to get them to come back to the pharmacy? Or are you saying you've now built an online ordering process and you would like to re-educate them that you want them to still be your customer and just order from you online? Is that the question, or is it more to get them to come into the store?
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Our business has, I would say, pretty much maintained itself, but there's, besides pharmacy, there's, I'm sure, a ton of businesses that are chamber members that have had the effect of, people don't want to go out, like you said, during this time. And there's got to be a time when they want to get back, or the future of the businesses, whether it's pharmacy or cards or whatever, the businesses aren't going to be able to sustain themselves without the foot traffic and people coming in the door. So you got to kind of say, well, damn it, I'm going to put the mask on and go in there because we need these businesses to survive in our communities. And that's just a part of what the businesses are to the communities and the reason the chamber exists. So, kind of on a soapbox with that. But getting back to your question, we don't have online presence. We are traditional in our pharmacies. We've been around for about 40 years here in Wyoming County, Sullivan County, and Bradford County. So, we're okay with how we've been doing the curbside, and I think we have a loyal base of business, but I'm sure that there's other forces going on here. The Amazons and even the insurance companies themselves, and perhaps even insurance agents are saying, hey, you got a way you can do it where you don't have to go out, you're safer. But, that may be true for the time being, but as time goes by, if people continue that type of behavior, then the future of the business they had is gone, and their future of building it is gone, because other forces besides, their own, however good or bad they are, or however loyal or whatever the customers are, there's other forces that are sending them letters saying, hey, you don't need to go to Lex Pharmacy, or you don't need to go to wherever to buy your products and get the things that you need. So to overcome those things, which are beyond the control of the independent owner, is a challenge, I think. And I don't know how deep it goes into other business, but I see what happens in my sector.
Is it okay if I jump in, Joe?
Oh, sure.
So I'm trying
to figure out, I'm trying to figure out how to get my face on there, so I don't know what to do.
There's a little video button at the bottom of your screen, Joe, on the left.
And I'd like to add something to this too, Steve, after you say what you're going to say.
Sure. So this makes me realize, Joe, something I probably should have brought up in the beginning of this. So I'll talk about. I'm going to get to your answer on this, okay, very quickly. But I want to lay a platform up. So I built my business and my reputation through relationships, and that's kind of how my business works. And I'm not just going to walk in somewhere and someone's just going to fire the person that they like and hire me because they like me more. It doesn't work that way. So through those relationships, I have clients that have been with me since the day I started my business. And they'll go from one company to another, and they'll keep me. And then when they leave that company, the new CEO keeps me on, plus I get the other client. And that's kind of how it's grown. So through those relationships, there was a guy from Dunmore, Pennsylvania, who moved to Philadelphia, and another guy from Dunmore who moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And they were starting an app. This is about 3 years ago. They brought me on and asked me to be a partner in the company. And the app was called NextGen. And the app was to be used for, it's basically an app that allows merchants, local merchants, to communicate with, the vision then was college, the university, or the universe of a college. So the alumni, the undergraduate, the graduate, the faculty, the staff, and give them exclusive opportunities for deals. So pizza places, dry cleaning, restaurants, movie theaters, anything you can think of, gyms, everything could offer exclusive deals to those people and communicate with them. And then they would get reports, data reports as to, they wouldn't know the names, but they would know if it was a female or a male, if it was a freshman or a junior or a sophomore, what day of the week female freshmen wanted pizza versus male alumni wanted whatever they wanted. So I was tasked with an assignment to get my partnership with the company. And recently, this was an example of rebranding. I had the conversation with them and I said, colleges right now are thinking about how to stop the bleeding. They are forced to reimburse money to people right now because they couldn't stay at the room and board and all of that. So they're not thinking about this app at this moment. I said, but who is thinking about it is Main Street America, all the merchants and everybody that needs help. I said, we have an app and a platform that we can give them so people like Joe can have the ability to market, people can order, pay online, and have it delivered online like Amazon. And Joe would get all this data. And it's basically like $10 a month. And so the merchants would get it for that. The users get to use it for free. And we rebranded it. It was called NextGen. I didn't like the name, and I rebranded it. It was about the local people and energizing the local community. The new name that I came up with was Locagize, energizing the local community, energizing Main Street. And it's going to be an app that we are going to market to all the chambers of commerce. And the chamber members will get this and be exclusive. And you guys were on our list, and it just so happens that you called me yesterday, Gina, and asked me to do this presentation. So I'll just say that. Joe, there is a solution, and there's a solution for a lot of you that you can use this device. Now, the device itself is one thing, but from a marketing standpoint, you still need to be able to communicate. And Joe, my advice to you would be authentic and let your local people know that you need their support. Communicate that. Tell them that you just say, look, here's what we're doing. We're safe. These are the precautions we're taking. Everything you said on the call, you might be told by insurances and other places that you don't need to. You might be being catered to by other larger corporate places. But if there's ever a time that we need each other in local communities, it's now. And if you can communicate your message in an authentic way, I think a really nice video, if you did something, even if you do it on your phone, whatever, but just tell your story and communicate what you feel and tell people why you're still there. And I think you will get more people to feel, they have to want to come to do business with us. Anybody that's out there that's nervous has to feel safe to come to us. And I don't mean safe because we're wearing a mask or because we use bleach to clean. I mean safe because they feel that we care about them and they care about us. So it really is going to come down to that. And we went from this globalism, and you're going to see a movement that's going to come back to Main Street, and it's going to come back to being local. And don't be afraid to be genuine about that. And don't be afraid to communicate that. Everybody, no matter what your business. Sandra, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I agree with everything you've said. I think that the key is relationships. And I think back to my relationships with my pharmacists over my lifetime, and they mean the world to me because I have allergies and whatever problems, asthma, this, that, and the other. I like to be able to talk to somebody that has my record, understands me, that I can ask them questions. So I think you certainly could capitalize on that, those relationships that you've built over the years. that's what makes you different from those big online services that are completely impersonal. And often those online services make you buy 3 months worth of supplies when you don't need 3 months worth of supplies. So there are things that make you strong that you need to focus on. And I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you had a web presence. I don't know if that's feasible for you, but you know, you could perhaps consider that. But think about those relationships that you've built, and like Steve says, you know, reach out to people and capitalize on that.
And you could do a localized campaign to your geography in the Tunkhannock, Wyoming County area, or wherever you reach to, and you could put some stories out there. You know, you could talk about relationships. You could talk about all those things that Sandra's talking about, and get people to feel like they want to help you and want to be there to support you. That's really what we all need to do. You know, here locally, there's nights that we don't really need to go out to eat or whatever, but you just feel like you want to support someone, and I'm sure probably everyone on this call has done this already. You do something because you want to support your community, and we're all in it together. So Gina, do you have any, are there any other questions that I'm not seeing, or should we call?
No, I think we need to call it. So we have always, you know, we have always tried to end these calls at about 10 o'clock because we want to stay aware of everyone's time. So I want to, again, thank Steve and Sandra for being here today and for being here last minute. And 3 things that I just want to kind of reiterate, and from all the words that I've heard today, and kind of, you know, boil down to this rebounding your brand. I think we need to focus on our authenticity as a company, our engagement with our customers. So don't lose that, even if it is a simple phone call. And then to build that continued trust, right? So they trusted you before this. They're going to trust you after this if you stay authentic and stay engaged with them. I thank you all for being on the call today. Remember, Friday's call is on a bit of a different platform. We're going to do a roundtable discussion with our experts. So we have about 7 different experts lined up to talk to you on Friday's call. You'll see that email coming out at about 11 o'clock today. So please jump in and register. We only have room for 50 people on that call on Friday, so space is limited. Thank you all so much for joining us today for our Restart, Rebound, Rebuild series. The Wyoming County Chamber is here for you through this time. Please call us if you have any questions or concerns or anything we can do to help you. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now. Bye, Steve. Bye, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you.